of Votan. Join me as we explore the history of this wretched, stunted, AI-loving clone race. But first we must gird our souls with the Emperor's holy light to protect against this most vilest of knowledge. Recite after me the litany against the mutant. Emperor, let your undeniable light burn on the misshapen and the twisted, so I can see them with pure sight and purge them with righteous fire. Ave Imperator. May the Emperor protect. For thousands of years, the Leagues of Votann have exploited the riches of the galactic core and overcome the perils of that tumultuous region. Over the millennia, they have battled many of the galaxy's races, and sometimes traded with, or fought as mercenaries for others. Now, as the galaxy convulses in the grip of the Great Rift, they face new challenges and new wars. The kin are squat and powerfully built humanoids. They dwell in vast numbers within the galactic core, being not so populous as the teeming humans, but far better established than the nascent Tau or dwindling Eldar. They are a clone race. Each generation emerges from machines known as crucibles, which draw upon vast banks of genomic data to produce a stable and varied populace. Their numbers are further augmented by the Iron Kin, machine intelligences, clad in mechanical bodies, that are, apparently, dedicated to aiding their flesh and blood fellows. To the kin, the Iron Kin are equal and valuable members of their star-faring society, both in times of peace and war. Absolutely disgusting. Few species in the galaxy can match the kin for resilience of body, mind and spirit. They are indefatigable, but also highly conservative. It takes a great deal to change their minds, and those not of their species stand little chance of doing so. This makes the kin implacable enemies. It also makes them valuable allies, but securing their aid is no easy matter. The kin look to their own familial duties and obligations first, and ultimately to the survival of their race. If they deem the motivations of others to go against these particular interests, then they are more likely to become foes than friends. As a race whose earliest origins lie aboard void-born mining fleets, the kin have an unforgiving moral code. A filter changed late, a weak seam missed, a water tank left leaking. These and a million other minor lapses can spell disaster when voyaging through the inimical void. Equally, to overlook valuable resources locked away within a stellar body, asteroid field or particulate belt can leave a ship without the raw materials required to effect repairs or to fuel systems. When waste, laziness, or even simple error can spell death for all aboard, these become the worst of sins. From painful experience has emerged the rugged, survivalist culture of the kin, who find strength and unity in the endless quest to acquire the resources their kindreds need to endure. It is this apparent acquisitiveness that has caused many other species to judge the kin, often harshly, as selfish hoarders. All kin, barring only rare outcasts, belong to a kindred. These are groupings somewhere between extended families and close-knit nations, and vary in size from a few dozens of kin up to many thousands or millions. All kin in a kindred have sprung from its crucibles, and thus share a genetic bond stronger than allegiance to any flag. They usually live, train and toil within their kindred's hold, when not abroad amongst the stars for trade, prospecting, or war. The kin habitually load apparently simple terms such as hold with nuanced meaning, being disinclined to even waste words. Thus, while the term is used throughout the Leagues of Votann, it can refer to wildly different structures and locations. Some holds are fusions of fortification, city, industrial complex and strip mine, the largest of which may sprawl across or honeycomb beneath much of a world's surface. Others may be heavily armed void stations, chains of domes scattered through asteroid belts, nomadic harvesting fleets, siphoning plants, riding the fringes of black holes, or even stranger marvels of technology. The Kindred can be a commanding force. Its hold may boast bustling cityscapes, industrial and military powerhouses, and many massive void ships. Yet, greater still are the Leagues of Votann. Nearly all Kindreds are part of one or another league, proudly displaying their colours and emblems while sharing trade, military support, guild tariffs, and so on. Many leagues have existed for millennia. The Greater Thurian League, the Yimir Conglomerate, the Urani-Sutier Regulators, and the Typhon Styx Protectorate, as well as others, are established in ancient power blocks. Some, such as the ill-fated Capellan League, have declined over the centuries, while others, like the Kronos Hegemony or the Sarantok Mercantile Leagues, are more recently established. At the heart of every league lies at least one Votan, also known as Ancestor cores. The kin believe these venerable thinking machines were created in a lost age of myth and departed their homeworld aboard the first kin mining fleets. The Votan were sent into the void alongside the kin to provide them with all the wisdom and aid they would require. The nodes through which that wisdom flowed have now become the fanes that lie within all kindred holds. The Votan are of incalculable value and importance to the kin. The millennia have wrought strange changes in these machine intelligences, rendering them ponderous and sentient. Yet they remain all-knowing repositories of lore and treasured links to the ancestors of untold centuries. Kin who can commune with the Votan are known as the Grimnir, or sometimes living ancestors, and are universally respected. Millennia have passed since the very first holds were established in the galactic core. The kin have been content to remain largely within the bounds of that strange region, which has long daunted many other races. Powers such as the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Eldar, and the Worshippers of Chaos have forged inroads into the core, of course. Some sought the incredible riches granted by the region's stellar nurseries and cosmic phenomena. Others hoped to hide amidst its turbulent gravitic anomalies, or to investigate the dense asteroid clusters flung out from the accretion disks around the supermassive black hole at the galaxy's heart. Yet the core is a forge for stars, an immense swathe of wild space, within which the fundamental forces of the universe rage. Many are the blasted ruins and drifting void hulks that form the headstones of those who sought sanctuary or fortune there. Such was not to be the fate of the kin, however. Boasting physiologies and technologies seemingly tailored for survival in this perilous region, they prospered where others failed. Their Cathonian mining guilds were the hardiest of all, and it was these heavily augmented and suicidally courageous individuals who delved swiftest and deepest. By the bloody light of red giants, their space-borne particle excavators disassembled newborn stars from the inside out, then employed their fusion harvest to refine elements undreamt of to fuel burgeoning industry. Kindred void ships sliced planets apart, then deployed external refinery rigs on miles-long umbilici to reap the molten harvest. Cosmic radiation and particulate belts that had been old when the war in heaven was fought were drawn into immense plasma conductors or caught in atomic scoops, then transfigured into the materials the kin required to survive. One by one, the leagues formed. Trade routes bridged void straits, battered by searing stellar winds, or saw merchant craft ply back and forth between the core's outer circumnuclear disk and the ominous dead zone that encircled its heart. More and greater holds were raised upon worlds where night never fell due to the sheer stellar density in the skies above. Life was hard, but the rewards were plentiful, and the kin saw clearly the benefits of thriving in a location where competitor species could not. Thus, as the millennia passed, the Leagues of Votann continued to focus upon settling the immense sprawl of the core and upon exploiting its boundless riches. This is not to say that the kin never ventured into the wider galaxy. The boldest amongst them were driven to prospect beyond the core, or to establish trade with species other than their own. More than this, there is a prevailing belief within the kin culture that in order to honour the ancestors, one must live a full life and discover or learn all that one can. This was reason enough to see countless kin explorator and prospecting fleets, commonly called prospects, set out into the wider galaxy. It also compelled bands of kin to leave their people and to fight as mercenaries in the wars of other species, returning only when they had gathered knowledge and experience fit to offer the Votan. Between these expeditions and contact with alien races also able to endure the galactic core, the Leagues of Votann have encountered all of the galaxy's great powers in one context or another. However, in many cases, these contacts were isolated to a single fleet, conflict, or trade agreement. The kin remained close-mouthed around outsiders, seeing no reason to reveal the extent of their holdings in the galactic core, or risk revealing the existence of the Votan. Many people they came into contact with thus mistook a single kindred or league for the entirety of some comparatively minor alien race. In Imperial records, it is impossible to say how many itinerant nomadic races, unclassified Xenos trade fleets, or so-called abhuman enclaves have actually been kin. Where they have been identified consistently, the kin are typically known to the Imperium by the rather pejorative term squats, and vary in their classification between abhuman and true Xenos. The kin have been mistakenly known to Tau and human alike as the Demiurge, to the Eldar as the Heliosi Ancients, and to various other peoples as the Nostari, the Grom, or the Craig, amongst others. The kin bear all this with a mixture of contempt and amusement. Their own oldest records do much to confirm a link between the ancestors and ancient pre-imperial terror. But to the kin, this only encourages a greater care in their dealings with humanity. The Leagues decided long ago that neither the God Emperor nor the Omnisire were any deity of theirs. As such, they see anything that might offer the Imperium greater claim to impose its will upon them as something to be avoided. Alongside exploration, trade and prospecting, the kin have also fought countless wars. A disproportionate number of these campaigns have been waged against the Orks, who remain their most hated and frequent foes. The Greenskins' crude but hardy civilization flourish as well in the galactic core as they do everywhere else, while their anarchic, destructive nature is anathema to everything the kin value. It is a combination that has seen mutual aggression rage between the two species. The kin have scarcely more time for the worshippers of the dark gods, who they view with a mixture of disgust and bewilderment. They dislike the Necrons also, against whom they have fought numerous times, when their excavations disturb tomb complexes or ancient dynasties return to reclaim worlds settled by the kin. The Tyranids, meanwhile, are known throughout the League simply as the Bane, and are afforded the weary respect one gives to especially intelligent and dangerous predators. This has not prevented some Kindreds from actively stalking Tyranid splinter fleets, striking at isolated hive ships in order to harvest their resource-rich bounty. Humanity has been the enemy of the Leagues as often as their allies. Inquisitors and intolerant Space Marines are quick to name the kin as Xenos and demand their slaughter, and rightly so. The Adeptus Mechanicus, meanwhile, are viewed by the kin as superstitious tech shaman, whose acquisitive ignorance makes them dangerous, and who are to be swiftly eliminated where they cannot be avoided. With the Eldar, the Tau, and a number of other alien races, the kin have maintained semi-cordial relations and achieved sporadic trade. Exceptions have still arisen, of course. The kin have little patience for the gruesome excesses of the Drukhari, or what they see as the arrogance of the Ashuriani, and of late have clashed around the fringes of the Chalnaf expanse with the dynamic Tau Empire. So conservative is kin society that, as a race, there are certain truisms and idioms that have found universal acceptance amongst them. The kin call these their truths, and treat them as articles of sincere good sense that are loaded with more nuance and meaning than is immediately apparent. The most common of these is the frequent kin saying, "The ancestors are watching," which often doubles as a battle cry. One interpretation of this truth is that all the generations who have gone before are judging the deeds of the living kin, who must strive their hardest to live up to those who came before. Yet equally, this truth can remind the kin that their ancestors live on in every new generation, and that they are never alone while their forebears stand with them. There are many other truths, from describing worthless objects or foolish schemes as a prize for an orc, to encompassing the depth of their race's space-faring prowess in the simple statement, "The void is in our veins." Like the kin themselves, to outsiders the truths seem uncomplicated and direct, yet in reality they are far more complex. The kin are typically pragmatic in battle, to the point where their heroes seem almost dispassionate. This is because the calculus of risk to reward and resultant survival underpins their military strategies just as much as it does every other aspect of kin society. This is not to say the kin are not bellicose in war. Their soldiery are fond of bellowed oaths, grim gallows humour, and booming war songs. Rather, their forces have been known to abandon valuable positions or break off from ferocious engagements without a backward glance, should the price of victory be judged too high. There is no cowardice or panic in such decisions, only the grim acceptance that spending lives and material to achieve Pyrrhic victories is a trade only a fool would willingly enter into. Kin military doctrine emphasizes a leader's ability to calmly assess enemy threats even in the midst of battle. Kin military leaders must remain stoic as they pass their gimlet gaze over the foe, determining which hostiles pose the greatest threats and thus merit prioritization. Known as casting the eye of the ancestors, this talent allows war leaders to judge at a glance which enemies are the most dangerous, where enemy fortifications are weakest, and what amount of resources to apply to each threat to balance success against cost. There are those enemies, however, whose actions test kin patience beyond its limits. Foes who repeatedly shame and insult the leagues, perpetuate great horrors upon the kin, or prove thorns in their side time and again, may become the focus of a grudge. In such cases, the kin appear to lose perspective. They will not hesitate to spend countless lives and shocking quantities of material in the destruction of a begrudged enemy, pursuing them relentlessly, even into probable doom. Kin sometimes form grudge bands at such times, swearing binding oaths to quest and fight together until either the grudge is settled or else everyone who swore the oath is slain. To outsiders, this behaviour seems anachronistic in the extreme, a bizarre reversal of the doctrines that pervade kin society. To the kin themselves, however, the notion of grudges is as deep-rooted and natural as breathing. In their minds, the ancestors will judge harshly any who allow such nemesis to endure. Traditionalist as they are, the kin hold true to core societal structures and ideals, no matter which kindred or league they belong to. The Leagues of Votann, the Kindreds and the Guilds form the foundations upon which the kin build, and also the venerable institutions whose survival they fight to ensure. The familial bond of the kindred remains with kin and ironkin, whether they live and work within their hold or roam the stars as warriors, merchants, miners, or courageous Hearnkin rangers. There is a shared understanding between the members of a kindred that goes deeper than words. It is a communality of thought and action that binds their armies tight and can appear to outsiders like some form of low-level telepathy. Every kindred has its own name, chosen when it was founded. Some, including the Scalfes kindred, the kindred of Narun, or Vaikat's kin, are named for the ancestor credited with their establishment. Others are named after a defining feature of their hold world, such as the kindred of Echodark, the Thousand Stars kindred, or the Iron Canyon kindred. Oddly, basic names are used by some like Kindred 6 or Kindred 11D, while others boast names that speak to their essential natures, such as the Star Delver kindred or the kindred of Orkslayers. The kin are also known to mingle these forms, producing names such as Yort's Black Pillars kindred or the kindred Stoic of Nightgulf. Other than its people, the heart of every kindred lies in its 4 pillars. The first is the hearth, the fire that burns at the heart of the hold. Echoing the times when all kin sailed the stars aboard vast generation ships, the hearth is the blazing reactor that powers the hold's defences and sustains life and light. Its fires are said to burn within the breast of all its kin, only extinguished if every last member of a kindred falls. The second pillar is the forge, wherein the kindred craft the weapons, equipment, tools, vehicles and technologies required to sustain them. In planet-based holds, the forge may be a conventional, if vast, industrial workshop, but in others it may take the form of a huge factory vessel, a hollowed-out industrial asteroid or a grav-anchored factory station. The third pillar is the fane, attended to by the living ancestors. From the fane flows the wisdom of the Votan, for it is here that the Grimnir interface with their ancestor cores. The final pillar is the Crucible, whose genomic cloning technologies ensure the kindred's continuation, and whose ancient devices are defended by the oath-sworn orders of the Embir. Every kindred governs itself from a huge spherical chamber known as the Specrond. Here the Half-Spake gathers, a ruling council of guildmasters, senior officers of the military kinhost, and wise and cunning Grimnir. For all their familial bonds, the members of the Half-Spake are much given to strident debate and obstinacy. Kin are slow to change their minds. When one believes firmly that he or she knows what is best for the kindred, they can be remarkably stiff-necked. Moreover, all are keenly conscious that the ancestors are watching. Though voices are often raised and debates may last for days, the Half-Spake sees little of the politicking or self-interested manoeuvring that typifies many species' political arenas. The kin might be hard-headed, but they are almost always earnest and honest in their desire to guide their kindred well. Guilds spread through kin society like veins of ore through bedrock. They are uniting bodies, made up of all those kin who perform a particular role or provide a particular service within a region of kin space. Every guild is ruled over by its guildmasters, who set standards for guild accreditation, expected levels of workmanship, and the tithes their members levy. The most prominent guildmasters also attend the Half-Spake, to give voices to the civilian kin. In theory, the guilds exist apart from kindred affiliations. They are meant to be a means by which fair competition is maintained across kin space, without kindred loyalties carrying undue weight. In practice, smaller guilds rarely extend their influence beyond a single hold or kindred. Moreover, a guild affiliation is a voluntary step that not all kin take. Guild members look askance at freelancers, while freelancers in turn despair at those they see as hidebound guildsmen. Where larger guilds do reach across multiple kindreds, there is no guarantee another enterprising group of kin won't decide to set up a rival guild. Competition can become heated between such bodies. Other races have been caught in the crossfire, as competing guilds sponsor oath-banned expeditions into rich systems, caring far more about beating their rivals to the punch than about the luckless civilizations already inhabiting contested worlds. Despite their fractious nature, guilds are invaluable to kin society. They smooth trade and transit between kindreds. They provide organizational administration and support throughout the leagues. From star mining and gravatic fracking to military supply chains, voidcraft repair, the provision and preparation of food and drink, the construction of homes and holds, and every other aspect of kin manufacture and distribution. It all functions better thanks to the guild's competition and high standards. The first Leagues of Votann were formed by kindreds in direct possession of Ancestor cores. The Leagues were initially military alliances, intended to ensure the precious Votan were protected, and sprang naturally out of the Long March mining fleets that settled the galactic core. Soon enough, the Leagues became mutually beneficial allied bodies, comparable to star-spanning nations. Each League possesses sole claim to the ancient heraldic colours and logos of one of the Long March mining fleets. Every kindred that belongs to a League is thus entitled to display these schemes and sigils in whatever fashion they see fit, provided that it is suitably respectable. Over time, the territories claimed by each League within the galactic core have become relatively set, while prevailing cultures, specialisms and outlook have come to prominence within their member kindreds. The many kindreds of the greater Thurian League, for example, tend toward the core kin values of trade and prospecting, and are known and respected for being especially mercenary. Those of the Trans-Hyperion Alliance are renowned as explorers and voyagers, for they possess an almost puritanical drive to enrich the Votan as much as possible, whether by discovery or military conquest. The Kronos Hegemony and the Grendel Dominance are overtly warlike, with the kindreds of the Kronos Hegemony particularly notorious for their mechanized onslaughts and apparent willingness to declare a grudge at the least provocation. The Jotun Eridani Combine are renowned for their craftsmanship and forging. The Urani-Sutier Regulators have a reputation for incredible stoicism and self-reliance, and the Gulu Industrial Complex are unmatched in the fields of void mining and terraforming, and no league boasts greater or more indomitable fortifications than the kindreds of the Typhon Styx Protectorate. These are but some of the many Leagues of Votann scattered throughout the galactic core. Even the kin no longer know the full extent or composition of these alliances, for while it is uncommon, due to their conservative natures, it is not unheard of for kindreds to leave one league in order to join another. In addition, some leagues have declined in power and importance until they fragmented, while others have been annihilated wholesale by war or tragedy, or have been cut off by the emergent warp storms of the Great Rift. Other leagues have been newly founded, sometimes in far remote territories, or else have been refounded in name by those who wish to honour some ancient league they believe long lost. It is possible that the Ancestor cores retain records of all kin history since their earliest days. If such information survives, however, it is likely buried beyond recovery. Accordingly, even the perennially thorough and practical kin have been forced to accept that, after a certain point, their ancient histories blur into myth. The Leagues of Votann are named in honour of the Votan itself, who is also known variously as the Primal Ancestor, the Gilded One, or the Stone Mind, amongst others. In some kin myths, Votan was not one being but many, and is sometimes depicted as a group of gleaming golden figures, or a wheel of graven stone faces. In other myths, Votan fashioned the first crucibles, then raised the kin up and sent them sailing into the dark void, before oceans of fire and flesh rose to swallow them. Some myths spoke of Votan as eldest and wisest of the first ancestors, themselves shadowy presences, ill-defined and shown in many different forms, both humanoid and otherwise, where they are depicted at all. With typical pragmatism, the kin accept that their myths are too contradictory, allegorical and suspect to be cited as possessing a definite basis in fact. None of this troubles them overly. Steeped as they are in tradition and dour realism, the kin feel less need than humans to don the armour of faith. They are not frightened by the inexplicable. Instead, they accept reality as they see it to be. If there are matters in their ancient past of which they have no understanding, then, unless those matters suddenly become relevant to their present, the kin set them aside. Of course, many Grimnir continue to interface with the Ancestor cores in the hopes of asking the right questions to unlock portions of their ancient history. Most do this more out of curiosity and a desire for completeness, however, rather than being motivated by some existential need. For all this, there are certain articles of lost history that the kin deem indisputable fact. They call these the first truths. It is a first truth that their earliest ancestors departed the homeworld, almost certainly pre-imperial terror, millennia ago, aboard fleets of generation ships. It is the first truth that the kin were cloned people from the beginning, and that the Iron Kin have been with them since those earliest days. It is the first truth also that the ancestors of the kin set out as miners, prospectors and void dredgers, charged with exploiting the riches of the heavens. Kin myth blends into recorded history around the time their Long March fleets were approaching the galactic core. Why they did not return to the heartlands of humanity is unclear. From the fact that so many kin fleets plunged into the galactic core within the period of only a few centuries, it might be inferred that a deliberate choice was made. It is during this period that the last references to the first ancestors can be found, often blurring with or transitioning into mentions of the ancestor cores. These are themselves also referred to collectively as the Votan, with the kin employing the two terms interchangeably. The first ancestors are cited here as agents of change, and held responsible for the majority of the stable mutations, collectively known as clone schemes, that run through the kin gene pool. This pool appears to have been broad, deep and varied from the first, putting the lie to simplistic notions of a clone race, all being literally identical. The Votan are thought to have hardened the kin, both physically and spiritually. Some accounts claim this was in response to a perceived threat. Others that it was done to ready the kin for inhabiting the harsh new home of the galactic core. In practical terms, the introduction of the clone schemes gave the kin denser musculature, tougher bone structures, higher red and white cell counts, exceptional core strength, and formidable physical resilience. More esoteric, but no less evident, are the changes worked on the kin's spirit, which caused their souls to shine far more dimly amidst the tides of the warp than those of humans. The kin evidence no uncontrolled psychic mutation, and only those with the appropriate psychoactive clone schemes can activate the so-called barrier tech that allows psychically active kin to interact with the Imperium. It is rare indeed that kin fall victim to physical mutation, demonic possession, or the temptations of chaos. Hostile psychic abilities struggle to find purchase upon them. It has been suggested by some outside observers that this very hardening of spirit led the kin to become ever more obstinate and conservative in character. If this is so, then it is just one side of a metaphysical feedback loop that has benefited their race greatly across the millennia. Beyond these benefits, there are many clone schemes that impart useful physical abilities upon kin who possess them. From enhanced reaction times and vision that registers infrared or other energistic spectra, to limited resistance to extremes of temperature, gravity, or strains of cosmic radiation. The list goes on. The clone schemes undeniably aided the kin in enduring the extreme environments of the galactic core. Many clone schemes manifest physically, whether it be unusually coloured eyes or skin, craggy subdermal layers, chemical body odours, or various other giveaways. To humanity, such physical abnormalities would surely be cause for prejudice and mistreatment. Rightly so. To the kin, they are rather badges of valuable ability, either bequeathed by the ineffable Ancestor cause or encouraged by the Cloners Guilds during gestation. Obscure legends give way entirely to historical records during the following centuries, as scattered kindred fleets settled new worlds, established trade routes, and became the first Leagues of Votann. Just to add on warp travel and barrier tech devices. The kin are able to exploit warp space in a way few other peoples would risk, thanks to their hardened souls and the reliable protection offered by their technologies. Even those kin who carry the psychoactive clone scheme are not literal psychers in the true sense of the word, like a shuttered lantern whose aperture has been opened a little wider. The souls of these psychoactive kin shine just brightly enough to mesh with ward tech, such as ancestral ward staves and crests. These devices come to life at their touch, emitting a soft thrum of power and glimmering with cold witchlight. It is through the careful use of barrier tech devices that the Ember manipulate the energies of the warp to produce manifestations similar to those conjured by true psychers. The kin say that the void is in their veins. By this, they mean that they have been starfarers since their earliest days and consider themselves preeminent in that field. Their voidcraft tend toward enormous size and redoubtable build, with even smaller vessels, such as the Bastion or Stronghold-class mining vessels, matching most races' cruisers for armoured bulk, shielding and firepower. When navigating real space, they employ electromagnetic scoops to power hydrogen ramjets that, while not the swiftest means of propulsion, are typically arranged in such clever profusion as to render kin void ships balletic, despite their huge size. When it comes to warp travel, the kin are equally steady in their approach. They use warp drives and Geller ramparts of superior design and reliability to anything humanity understands. Each craft is commanded by a Voidmaster, a captain skilled in every aspect of spacefaring and often augmentically enhanced to aid them in their duties. Each is supported by Ironkin Wayfinders, whose accelerated logic cores enable them to cogitate probable paths through the madness of warp space without risking psychic interaction. With support from their bridge crews, these specialists guide their craft in a series of plunges. These are short, controlled warp jumps, during which the kin may take the time to harvest energistic skeins from within the Imperium, or even board warp-borne space hulks for empiric salvage. Travelling in plunges takes longer than the vast warp jumps made by humanity, or the risky sprints of the Tau's slipstream module, but it ensures that the kin arrive where and when they intended, almost every time. The Votan, or Ancestor cores, are as sacred to the kin as gods are to more spiritual races. Part oracular fonts of wisdom, part gestalt ancestral presences, and part sentient supercogitators, the Votan are the foci for a secular cult of veneration, which is as close as the kin come to religious belief. No league would risk harm to its ancestor core if there was any other path, and no kin nor ironkin would hesitate to lay down their lives in defense of the Votan. By custom, the kin do not speak of the Votan to outsiders. They use their name freely enough, but never explain it, content to leave others to believe what they want of the word. The Votan belong to the kin, just as the kin belong to the Votan, and no other peoples have any place in that relationship. In part, this is because superstitious non-kin would be apt to misinterpret the ancestor cores as deities or demons. In truth, the Votan can be best described as ancient machine intelligences so complex and powerful as to be nigh on supernatural. Their self-organized data stacks and quantum info cores hold all the information a race might need to thrive in the depths of space. Weapon specifications, standard template constructs, scientific and philosophical learnings, genealogical data, military and survival theory and strategy. These are just part of the wealth of lore buried within the machine minds of the Votan. So bright do their artificial intellects shine, the kin voidfarers were even able to use them as localized beacons within the warp. Herein lies the other reason the kin do not speak of the Votan to outsiders. In a dark and ignorant age, few treasures are as precious or dangerous as knowledge. Sadly for the kin, the wisdom of the ancestor cores has become ever harder to access as the millennia have passed. Whoever created these incredible machine minds, it seems unlikely that they were ever meant to continue independent operation for as long as they have. Nor, perhaps, were they equipped to wrestle with the intellectual and moral dilemmas or galactic truths they have been faced with. More and more information, dutifully catalogued and filed away, has filled their mental storehouses to overflowing. Questions posed by the Votan have required them to adapt their own processing subroutines through self-guided evolution, and at times to request information or mechanical augmentation. Over-association with the true living minds of the kin has led some Votan to develop strange behavioral quirks akin to rudimentary personalities. All of them have become more ponderous of thought. Questions asked of the Votan may take as much as centuries to receive an answer, which may, even then, be another question. Information not regularly accessed has vanished into lost data vaults deep within their mental architecture, while vital facts or details have been mirrored in self-replicating layers of data amendments. Day by day, the ancestor cores become more sentient and, in some cases, mercurial. Ironically, the cultural practices of the kin may actually have contributed, however unwittingly, to their ancestor cores' decline. The Votan have long borne responsibility for regulating the genomic data required to breed each new generation of kin, even as the race has grown exponentially. Perhaps most demanding of all, they have also accepted into themselves the accumulated and often duplicate cerebral data of endless generations of dead kin and ironkin. It seems likely this custom was once purely practical, part of the same pragmatic routine that saw the bodies of the fallen recycled for nutrients and raw materials. In more recent millennia, however, it has taken on an element of ritual that has seen mountainous drifts of information drown even the hyper-technological mind cores of the Votan. All kin desire to rejoin the ancestors upon their deaths, with their bodies and minds offered up to the Votan in belief that their experiences will enrich the machine minds and aid future generations. This places great pressure on individual kin to live up to the perceived ideals of their ancestors, driving them on to illuminate dark new corners of space, to witness sights no kin before them has, and to engage in adventure and battle across the vast span of the galaxy. It is a major motivator in oath bands setting out to fight as soldiers of fortune in the wars of other races. For doing so allows them to learn much from their temporary employers, not least the movements of potentially hostile foes and the locations of rich caches of resources. They then return to their people more grizzled and wise than ever before. The tradition of returning to the ancestors also provides the Kindreds with their greatest means of sentencing transgressors. It is viewed as a waste of resource to incarcerate those kin so aberrant that they would commit cardinal crimes against their own. Murder, extreme wastage, and abject failure have but one possible punishment. That they might no longer burden their family, the culprit is sent into exile from which vanishingly few ever return. At the same time, their name is told to the Votan, so that the ancestors know who has failed them, and can forbid the transgressor entrance into another kindred or league. To the kin, the true horror of this sentence is neither death nor loneliness, but rather that they will never be permitted to return to the ancestors. Their entire life and all of their experiences are thus rendered meaningless. The kin say of this fate that it would be better never to have drawn breath. The thought of exile is one of the very few that inspires true dread amongst them, and its threat does more to stay the hand of lawbreakers than would any amount of corporal punishment or fire and brimstone dogma. It is the Grimnir who come closest to speaking to the Votan. To them falls the duty of asking the ancestors for wisdom and guidance, and interpreting the resultant output. This they do within the arcane technological structures called Fanes. Every hold has a Fane, a space of timeless devices and quiet contemplation, at the heart of which lies a complex tangle of machinery that is part altar, part interface. It is said that once these machines were simply the nodes through which the wisdom of the Votan flashed with the speed of thought from one voidcraft to another. They still fulfill this practical purpose. Culturally, though, Fanes have taken on a greater spiritual significance to the kin, so that now they are viewed as places where one stands in the full regard of the ancestors, and where the presence of the Votan lies heavy and somber. Indeed, through the arcane technological processes that even the kin do not understand, there have been instances recorded of Fanes miraculously developing artificial intellect in their own right, joining the ranks of the Votan themselves. These occurrences of miraculous self-awareness are cause for great honour and celebration amongst the kindred in whose hold they occur. By comparison, though, more than one Votan has degenerated in recent centuries until they have become little more than Fanes themselves. To witness such decline is a terrible tragedy to the kin. Alliances such as the Capelan League or the disintegrating Balor-Atal Conglomerate endured long years of mourning after their ancestor cores suffered this fate. The Votan are protected with every technological and strategic art the kin can conceive, including oath bands of Einherjar Hearthguards and war engines who stand guard over each ancestor core. Some are buried deep in fortified vaults or encased behind layers of force fields at the heart of impenetrable strongholds. Others are kept on the move, housed aboard the mightiest flagship of their league. For all this, some Votan have fallen to the predation of foes, much to the shame and sorrow of the kin. The 500 Years' War was triggered when Orks of the Morbok overran the hold of Orica's Iron Gate kindred and tore apart the ancestor core within. The Grand Orion Compact swore the most widespread grudge in recorded history for the death of their Votan, hurling all their might against Morbok's empire of scrap for more than 5 centuries, until the last Ork was slain and the insult answered. More tragic still is the tale of the Emberg Eigner block, who found themselves in the path of a tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan. Consisting of only a handful of Kindreds, the Emberg Aigner were forced to stand their ground when the Hive ships closed in around the Hold World, beneath whose surface resided their Votan. Hopelessly outnumbered, the kin fell to the last in its defence. Yet the bitterest irony was yet to come. The Tyranids ignored the Votan entirely, leaving it buried alone in its pit upon a dead world. The accumulated pain and desolation of those who had fought, died, and been returned to the Ancestors, to keep their bodies from the hungry maw of the swarm, flowed into the machine mind of the Votan and drove it insane. The sorrowful tale of the Mad Core is still told amongst the Leagues, and all know not to sail by the wavering beacon of its tortured mind. To the kin, any region of blank space upon their star charts is a mystery in need of solving. The desire to plumb the depths of the void, to discover its secrets and claim its riches, is deeply ingrained in their psyche, as is the need to know what, if any, sources of peril might lurk amidst the shadows. The Hearnkin are the furthest travelled of their race. Their sturdy boots have left prints in eons-old dust of lost moons. Their pioneers have skimmed across the baking plains and through the carnivorous jungles of worlds never before seen by the kin. Bands of Hearnkin leave their kindreds behind for decades at a time, forging out into the dark spaces beyond the furthest trade routes, or shining their lights into regions long declared lost or forbidden. In many galactic cultures, such a wanderer's role might fall to outcasts and loners, and be synonymous with rebellion against confining social structures. By comparison, becoming one of the Hearnkin brings high honour amidst the Leagues of Votann. By ranging the dark void, the Hearnkin do great service to the Votan. Such a wild and rootless existence leads Hearnkin to see unbelievable sights, uncover ominous galactic secrets, and experience countless, often perilous adventures. All of these experiences ensure when Hearnkin finally return to their ancestors, they bring with them swaths of enriching experience. The Leagues of Votann also benefit greatly from the efforts of the Hearnkin. It is often an intrepid band of these brave scouts that identifies and warns of an impending peril, be it a star preparing to go supernova, a hidden webway spur employed by Comorite slave raiders, an onrushing Ork war, or some other unforeseen threat. The Hearnkin also locate potential trading partners for their kindreds, make navigable void channels, scout viable regions for kindred settlement, and most importantly of all, locate valuable resources to be exploited. To achieve all this, however, the Hearnkin themselves make great personal sacrifices. It is this that makes them such heroes in the eyes of their fellow kin. It is not easy for family-focused clones to spend such extended periods of time away from the comfort of their kindreds and holds. Moreover, there is always the danger that if their band is wiped out far from League space, the Hearnkin may never return to their ancestors. That these brave scouts are willing to take such risks says much for their character. It also speaks volumes of their race's inbuilt drive to survive, no matter the hardships or dangers. The Hearnkin take pride in the perils of their role as frontiersmen. It is perhaps unsurprising that they are amongst the most rugged and dour of all their people, holding hard to the bonds of loyalty that bind their pioneering bands together, who are all the family they can rely on so far from home. The Leagues ensure their Hearnkin are as well equipped as possible to face the dangers inherent to their role. Guild affiliates furnish bands of Hearnkin with the most advanced and redoubtable scout ships in kindred space, piloted by Voidmasters as courageous as they are skilled. A wide array of armoured gunships and rugged exploration and combat vehicles provide the Hearnkin with transportation the equal of even the most hazardous alien landscapes. Meanwhile, their enviro-hardened void suits are supplemented with an impressive arsenal of weaponry, both kin portable and vehicle mounted, along with a range of field generators, survival gear, and pan-spectral scanners. Pan-spectral scanners are useful both in prospecting and combat. They can detect an incredible range of energy spectra, not only through solid matter, but even across multi-dimensional wavelengths, ensuring the Hearnkin are rarely surprised by even the most cunning or esoterically empowered foes. These scanners are equally unlikely to miss the presence of natural resources the kin would prize. When such rich discoveries are made, Hearnkin mark the location using powerful claim beacons, whose multispectral energy signatures are bounced back along networks of relay satellites all the way to League space. It is at such times that the Cathonian Guilds rumble into action. If the Hearnkin are examples of their race's survivalist drive, the Cathonian mining guilds embody their belligerence and acquisitiveness. Fearless in the cause of locating, securing, and harvesting resources for their race, the Cathonians think nothing of braving environments so extreme that even other kin would balk at the hazards. From violent gravity maelstroms, meteor collision fields, savagely irradiated nebulae, and plague-ridden planetoids, to sweltering magma caverns, crushing oceanic depths, hypersonic shard storms, gnawing fringes of black holes, and even nightmarish space hulks adrift on the tides of the warp. The kin of the Cathonians take grim pride in braving them all. This bloody-minded approach extends equally to living or sentient hazards such as predatory aliens or hostile empires. Included in this category are also many advanced and militarized civilizations, with what would seem to be entirely legitimate claims to the resources the Cathonians covet. Many guild surveyors think nothing of assessing assets such as plasma storage plants, promethium stockpiles, void-going ore barges, and even fully functional industrial infrastructure as simply desirable concentrations of harvestable resources. They are viewed no differently than veins of precious ore locked away within a rock face, waiting to be claimed. In such cases, trade is often attempted as a first recourse, for war is wasteful. If such measures fail, then violent acquisition is viewed by the Cathonian Guilds as the next logical step. As the kin truth has it, luck has, need keeps, toil earns. In short, they who want something the most and fight the hardest for it deserve to possess it. And if that is the kin, then what they claim by conquest is theirs by right. Not all miners join a Cathonian guild. There are hundreds of unaffiliated asteroid mines and void harvesting rigs scattered across League space. However, a substantial majority of kin miners do choose to acquire guild accreditation, for firmly pragmatic reasons. Most Cathonian guilds are rich and prestigious enough to operate their own fleets of ruggedly fortified void ships, which give them an edge amidst the fierce competition for the richest claims. Most are also willing to supplement the equipping and surgical augmentation of their members, investing in their future successes. Most kin who join the Cathonians are already adapted for hardiness. They possess clone schemes that imbued them with hyperdense bone structures, extreme tolerance to harmful radiation, the ability to perceive esoteric energy spectra, vacuum-hardened organs and circulatory systems, and so on. Added to this, they willingly submit to repeated surgical procedures that augment them with reinforced skull plates, advantageous bionics, artificial organs, and other mechanical adaptations to help them endure the most extreme environments. There is a culture of cheerful rivalry amongst the Cathonians regarding how heavily adapted and scarred they are, both for and because of their labours. The hardiest amongst them are nicknamed luggers, quite literally those who can carry the most, both in terms of literal and metaphorical burdens. With typical understatement, the Leagues of Votann refer to most resource harvesting operations as mining. It is a humble word for such an incredible range of technologically breathtaking operations, undertaken at a colossal scale. Global magna extraction and tectonic delving topple mountain ranges and shatter worlds as the kin free the resources they want from the surrounding extraneous planetary structures. Stars grow dim under the attentions of Cathonian stellar siphons. Phenomena that humanity view with superstitious terror are torn apart and processed by the kin through methods such as atom delving and trans-etheric resubstantiation. Nor do the Cathonians shy away from mining operations in active war zones. Indeed, it is not uncommon for such conflicts to have been triggered by the Cathonian Guilds' acquisitive efforts. Their ships are capable of deploying temporary defensive structures, from atmosphere engines dropped from gunships to field dome generators and heavily armoured harvester plants, that the kin soldiery use to defend their ongoing extraction processes. The Cathonians themselves will gladly fight alongside the Hearthkin and Hearnkin also, as sappers, combat engineers, indomitable line breakers or extreme environment infantry. Chthonian berserks, in particular, relish the opportunity to turn their concussion mauls and heavy plasma axes against their foes, smashing, bludgeoning, and blasting as they compete to prove themselves the toughest lugger. The assembled military forces of a kindred are known collectively as its kin host, comprising the kindred's massed soldiery, its Einheer elites, the artillery and war engines of the Forge, along with auxiliaries from groups such as the Hearnkin and Chthonians. The kin host is a potent force indeed. A kin host is usually built around a solid core of what the kin call soldiers of the line. The most prevalent of these are the Hearthkin, stoic and dependable bands of soldiers who form the main battle line in combat. Hearthkin are technically citizen soldiers, in that many of them have side trades and interests they focus on during peacetime. However, as members of the kin host, they are trained as frequently and rigorously as the elite warriors of many other races. As kin do not engage in anything unless they are willing to do it to the best of their abilities, all of this training and dedication sees the Hearthkin boast excellent discipline and prodigious martial skill. Indeed, a trainee warrior may not join a band of Hearthkin until they are able to pass a rigorous series of tests to prove their endurance, marksmanship, aggression, tactical acumen and courage. Those kin who aspire to become Hearthkin, or indeed other designations of soldiers of the line, typically boast clone schemes well suited to their ambition. They may be especially resilient, swift of thought and action, able to rapidly heal physical injuries, see in low-light conditions, and so on. As with the Cathonian Guilds, the kin host also invests in augmenting its personnel. Many Hearthkin benefit from augmetic organs or limbs, cerebral communication chips, ocular targeting implants, and various other useful additions. Each Kindred's Forge prioritizes arming and equipping their kin host soldiery above all but the most essential duties of hold maintenance and void ship construction. Hearthkin are no exception to this, and thus go to battle clad in hardened void armor, wielding an array of potent weaponry from autarch-patterned bolters and ion blasters to Hylas auto rifles. No soldier of the line is considered expendable, despite being their race's rank and file. Rather, every kin warrior is seen as a valuable combat asset, not to mention family members and scions of the ancestors. Field medics are common amongst their ranks. These kin are provided with exhaustive training in first aid under fire, as well as a limited engineering tuition that enables them to provide the required level of care to damaged Ironkin soldiers. Kin-host military doctrine emphasizes the intelligent use of lives and material by Hearnkin and their comrades, never wasting either in the name of anger or vainglory. Strong bonds of loyalty bind the individuals of each Hearnkin squad together and ensure the comradeship of one squad to the next, meshing kin-host formations beneath the trusted leadership of their heroic leaders. Those soldiers of the line who show sufficient aptitude are given additional training in order to wield specialist weaponry, such as L7 missile launchers or Eta Khan plasma beamers, or to serve their comrades as scanner operators and communications officers. If a kin shows particular drive and aptitude toward leadership, they will be nominated by their superiors or comrades to be promoted to the rank of Thane, which roughly translates to squad leader. This is a great honour and responsibility both, which most Thanes strive to live up to. Kin who truly excel may be selected to become members of the Einheer, or else ascend to the rank of Karl. Treading one of these paths does not preclude following the other at a later date, and some kin have even belonged to both elite circles at once. Most commonly, however, the Karls stand apart as war leaders and generals, while the warriors of the Einheer fulfill roles such as elite strike troops, bodyguards, boarding parties, and the like. The trademark of the Einheer is their exo-armor, massive servo-assisted suits of powered battleplate. Exo-armor is capable of shrugging off anti-tank fire, while hugely enhancing its wearer's might in battle. It can also mount an impressive array of weapon systems, including Eta Khan plasma brands, vulcanite destructors, concussion weapons, plasma blades, and even the potent mass accelerators that transform the Einheer champions into living battering rams. When a kin host mobilizes for war, it is commanded by its Kindred's Votannic Council. This body consists of the most senior and respected heroes of the Kindred. It often includes the High Carl, the Brockier Forgemaster, the Kindred's Lord Grimnir, and other senior figures of authority and power, as well as assembled advisors. The Votannic Council is normally gathered only for the grandest conflicts. However, usually when the entire Kindred or their hold face direct peril. At other times, portions of the kin host's forces may be led to war by smaller gatherings of heroes such as Karl's Brockier Iron Masters or Living Ancestors, or even by just a single one of these brave commanders. However large the mobilization of forces that occurs, the available kin soldiers, combat vehicles, voidcraft, and any attached Hearnkin, Cathonians and the like, are organized into one or more oath bands. The size and composition of an oath band is almost endlessly flexible, from a handful of warriors under a single leader to an army of millions, supported by all the machinery of interplanetary warfare. Often, in the face of dire need, an oath band will simply be drawn together from whatever kin forces are available at the time. The one constant of an oath band is that it has an ultimate commander, most often, but not always, a Karl, to whom all its warriors swear an oath of service until such time as the oath band's goals are met, or their leader releases them to fight elsewhere. So variable and seemingly ad hoc an organizational structure would be unimaginable for most of the galaxy's races. Thanks to their close subconscious bonds and sense of shared purpose, however, the kin are able to operate in this fashion with little, if any, confusion or difficulty. The League lay claim to star-spanning territories, both within the galactic core and beyond. The systems demarcated by each League's ident beacons teem with strange races, stellar phenomena, wilderness regions and perilous environments to be overcome or exploited as the League's kindreds see fit. Even the smallest kindreds typically command either a homeworld, a nomad flotilla, or a void station they call home. The largest and most prosperous amongst them, meanwhile, rule over multiple star systems, possessing population centers, resource harvesting facilities, and military power, comparative to many minor alien empires. Considering that a typical League of Votann consists of between a half dozen to a score of kindreds, it is easy to see how even a single league can hold sway over a considerable region of space. Though there have been dark times when civil war raged between kindreds or leagues, such occurrences are rare, for they are viewed with distaste by kin as dishonourable and wasteful. More usually, once a league has laid claim to a region, that claim is honoured by all other kin. Established boundaries shift rarely, for they soon become tradition to the kin. Usually, when such a change of ownership does occur, it is due to revised trade agreements. The changing of allegiance of a kindred, taking their sovereign territory with them, or else the hostile onslaught of alien forces. The conquest of new regions not held by the Leagues of Votann is an entirely different matter. The kin consider any region of space not actively claimed by their people to be open for conquest. That other races might already dwell there is seen as either opportunity or obstacle. Should the inhabitants of a system be amenable to mutually beneficial trade or peaceful cohabitation, then, so long as the kin can continue with their desired acquisitions uninterrupted, these options are often taken. Some kindreds have managed to exist in peaceful alliance with non-kin species for centuries at a time, forming compacts with their neighbours against the hostile attentions of invaders and pirates. If, on the other hand, military conquest is the only viable strategy by which a region can be added to a league's territories, and if the cost of the fight can be justified, then the kin will not hesitate to go on the offensive. In many ways, such impersonal invasions can be as horrifying to the defenders as any hate-fueled crusade of slaughter. Being mercilessly eliminated by foes who view you as no more than an obstacle to be removed is a deeply unsettling and belittling experience. So hardy and technologically advanced are the kin that they have claimed many regions of space, viewed by other species as inimical. Nothker's kindred of the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, for example, maintain a hold amidst the calamitous ruin belt of the Broken Triplets. This trio of worlds was smashed together during some ancient catastrophe, and the colossal quantities of debris from their demise still whirls and ricochets in a vast cloud to this day. Trapped by the gravitic anomaly that caused the disaster. Few other people could consider such a devastating region home, yet the hold of Nothker's kindred, Sunderstare, sits at the heart of the anomaly, behind a breathtaking bulwark of interwoven force fields. These both shelter the immense void station and also maintain clear space lanes for its voidcraft to take in and out of the system. Not only do the kin enjoy the natural defense of the ruin belt, which would swiftly cripple invading craft, but they have also spent centuries mining the exposed innards of the Broken Triplets. The Orksbane kindred of the Yimir Conglomerate, meanwhile, built their hold upon the irradiated world of Tamakir. Known as Brockfire, the hold is dug deep into Tamakir's mantle, insulated against the exotic and deadly energy spectra that pour from the world's nearby star. What violent apotheosis the tortured star is undergoing, none can say. But for 3 millennia, the Orkbane kindred have captured the energies of its raging solar flares, using miles-high stellar veins. These energies power their forge, which is amongst the greatest in all the Leagues of Votann, renowned for the amazing weapons of war it can produce. There are many examples of the kin's extra-mobile capabilities, as there are blazing stars filling the skies of the galactic core. The greater Thurian League's holdings through the shrieking nebula, the dark star mines clinging to the fringes of the dead zones. the holds of the Karkir Stellar Nursery, the Balewind harvester stations of Yenna's kindred, and the kindred of Arnok, the Icelock holds of the Stygius Lagoon on the border of the Orc Empire of Morzag. These and countless other holdings are renowned throughout the Leagues as sources of pride and examples of how the king can conquer any region of space no matter how perilous. The greatest recorded upheaval to League space came with the emergence of the Great Rift and the eruption of multiple warp storms across the galactic core. Orgvir, Toril, Og, and Cyclop, and other distorted maelstroms swallowed systems, consumed kindreds, sundered age-old trade routes and stable warp currents, and left many leagues either suddenly embattled or broken into warp-riven fragments. As the shockwaves of the warp storms rolled outward, worse was to follow. Long stable celestial phenomena convulsed and mutated, with pulsars becoming big-tentacled predatory horrors, grav reefs inverting, and black holes sprouting dark matter fangs as they expanded ravenously. Hostile races, such as the insidious Septerex, the Trobdia Ferrophagists, and the ominous cult of Orn, were driven onto the warpath as their own home systems were consumed. Some storms, Ogvir and Geruk, worst amongst them, vomited hordes of chaos-worshipping invaders and demonic horrors, and one Orc war after another erupted from the fringes of the storms. It was in the face of such threats that many Leagues of Votann chose to seek new territory beyond the bounds of the core for the first time in millennia. At the same time, the universal upheaval catapulted human, Eldar, and Tau interlopers into the galactic core, dislocated through space and time by energies of the warp and spat out in territory claimed by the Leagues. Anarchic conflicts erupted as interlopers sought to either fight their way out or claim territories for themselves, and the kin have been fighting back ever since. The Leagues never restricted themselves solely to the galactic core, however. Hearnkin, Cathonians, and accompanying soldiery form militarized expeditions known as prospects to seek out far-flung resources galaxy-wide. Entire oath bands of kin depart from their kindreds to serve as mercenaries, often fighting alongside humanity and, at times, even settling on worlds within Imperial space, or integrating for a time into human society. Meanwhile, planets such as Necromunda and Vordyne have boasted populations of so-called squats for as long as Imperial records tell. On occasion, one kindred or another has relocated itself wholesale out of the core, sometimes travelling to the furthest reaches of the known galaxy on one quest or another. Most often, such undertakings are the result of insight offered by the Votan, and have ended either in incredible discoveries and deeds of heroism, or else the disappearance of kindreds into the darkness between the stars. Whatever the nature of these departures, or colonization efforts outside of the core, all are said to occur in far space, that being any region beyond the circumnuclear disk that marks the outer borders of their traditional territories. Some amongst the kin believe that a venture into far space is a fool's errand, and indeed the expression sailed to far space is used throughout many holds to mean that a kin has embarked upon a dangerous course of action they will likely regret. There are others amongst the half-spakes, however, who believe that just as the kin hailed from the depths of far space so many millennia before, so their ancestral roots and their future lie out there in the greater dark. We shall now discuss some of the more prominent leagues. The Greater Thurian League. Not only is the Greater Thurian League one of the original founding leagues of Votan, it is also one of the largest, counting scores of kindreds in its alliance, and attracting more to its ranks with every passing decade. The Greater Thurian League is a military, mercantile and industrial powerhouse with few equals. At the most recent count, the Greater Thurian League contained over 200 allied kindreds. Between them, they boast vast flotillas of void ships and near-endless ranks of kin-host warriors. Huge and wealthy guilds, such as the Yngvari Combined Logistics and Star Strider Mercantile Confederation, and the Cathonian Guild of Kadok, see to the League's continued and immense prosperity. Greater Thurian holds, such as Crimson Gulf and Orvheim's Bulwark, are famed throughout the galactic core for their sheer size and impenetrable defences. Meanwhile, some of the most storied heroes of the kin lead the Greater Thurian League Oathbands to war. Karl Kovim Raed, heroine of the Black Harrow expedition, Grimnir Vok, known as the Fire of the Votan, Uther the Destined, wielder of the Blade of the Ancestors. These and many other names besides have found fame throughout kin society for their exploits and the ways in which they embody their race's core values of pragmatism, survivalism, and mercenary conquest. The Greater Thurian League have long ventured into far space, whether to trade with other species, to explore and exploit new regions, or to fight as mercenaries alongside the Imperium of Man. However, the recent manifestation of Warpstorm Ogvir upon their northeastern border has forced the League into a more aggressive stance. Even as bristling kin megacruisers ferry kin hosts east to bolster the rapidly solidifying Stormward front, the Greater Thurian League are also dispatching numerous prospects west beyond the circumnuclear disk. They have deployed forces into the neighbouring Marsalis and Sepulchre sectors, in numbers not seen outside the galactic core since the kin first settled there. The remit of these forces is to claim new worlds for those kindreds dispossessed by the Chaos invaders pouring from the Maelstrom, and identifying safe systems for the League to fall back to should its defences fail or the fight become too costly. Imperial governors throughout both sectors have responded to this apparent invasion with a predictable mix of panic and zealotry, hurling armies at the encroaching kin, even as their Astropath's fragmentary distress calls wing their way out to the wider Imperium. The Greater Thurian League thus finds itself embattled now upon two fronts, yet their kindreds remain as determined as ever to survive and prosper. Uther the Destined is amongst the mightiest Karls of the Greater Thurian League. He is the victor of the Dead Star campaign and the slayer of Gorbrak the Iron Beast. Yet it is said his greatest deeds still lie ahead of him. Uther was born to the kindred of Votan, in the hold of Obsid Gate, on a day of strange omens. In the fane, the Grimnir watched with wonder as the Votan put forth a spontaneous screed of prophecy. The information was muddled, printed in ancient data scripts few kin now comprehend. Argument raged about its true meaning, but it seemed to imply that one amongst the day's newly cloned was meant for some great task. Meanwhile, the mechanisms of the Hold's forge swung into motion without any Brocker's command, and produced a magnificent energy blade. At the same time, clues in the Votanic prophecy led the Grimnir to Uther's crucible. Thus, by the end of his first bewildering day of life, Uther had been proclaimed as the Destined, and the miraculous blade of the Ancestors was bestowed upon him. He has striven to live up to the expectations of the Ancestors ever since. Driven to prepare himself for his enigmatic duty, he has explored, soldiered, and endured hardships to make even a Cathonian berserk wince. Through it all, Uther has displayed uncanny good fortune that some have attributed to the aid of the Ancestors, and others to some obscure clone skein. Whatever the truth, this has certainly contributed to Uther's longevity and his many victories. Yet so have his hard-won veteran abilities. If Uther's actions sometimes seem cruel, his comrades simply attribute this to the pressure of knowing that one day his great duty shall come upon him. Besides, Uther's ready gallows humour and down-to-earth persona help to cover up his colder side. They also conceal the worm of doubt. This has gnawed at the Destined since his earliest days, forcing him to question if the prophecy was correctly understood and, if it was, whether he can ever be ready for such a momentous yet ineffable task. Ultimately, Uther is kin, and thus able to push his fears aside in favour of duty. He long ago swore to himself that he would make his ancestors proud. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance. The Trans-Hyperion Alliance are the furthest travelled of the Leagues. Many of the prospects that penetrate deep into far space wear their distinctive orange void armour, and their Hearnkin are renowned for both their tenacity and frontiersmen's drive to banish the darkness beyond the edges of the map. The Kindreds of the Trans-Hyperion Alliance are peopled with explorers and adventurers. They seek out new warp routes, trade partners, and mysteries with an almost compulsive determination, and their forges labour constantly to produce swift and powerful spacecraft. While they control vast swathes of territory, both within and outside of the galactic core, these holdings are far-flung and thinly spread. Many Trans-Hyperion kindreds dwell in isolated pockets or have their holds aboard nomadic fleets that are ever on the move. The League remains well connected despite this, for lighter craft streak between the scattered kindreds bearing news of discoveries and threats. Even the League's Votan, of which it boasts a remarkable free, are ever mobile, nestled deep within fortified void ships and accompanied by sizable fleets. Ancient technologies within their fanes ensure that every Trans-Hyperion kindred stays updated with the coordinates of their Votan. The information displayed in a cleverly scrambled manner, useless to even the most cunning enemy boarders. The kin, after all, do not want any foe discovering the existence and location of the Votan by unfortunate chance. The driving force behind the constant striving and seeking of the Trans-Hyperion Alliance is their dedication to the enrichment of the Votan. In this, they come as close as any of their race to genuine religious fervour. A cult of ancestor worship prevails throughout the Alliance. Those fanes are always filled with small votive offerings to respected ancestors. Other kin find this practice strange and wasteful, but the folk of the Trans-Hyperion Alliance say that doing honour to their ancestors is a transaction only of value, never of cost. They view exploration, adventure, and battle that way also, driven ever to scatter across the stars and seek out the greatest enrichment and material riches in their ancestors' names. Hearnkin are held in especially high esteem in the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, and a great number of their populace spend at least some time amongst these wandering ranger bands. Only rarely does the entire League rally as a coherent force, and that is usually when one of their wandering Votan comes under direct threat. At such times, the Trans-Hyperion kindreds cast aside all their considerations, retreating from hard-fought campaigns, breaking oaths with allied powers, and even setting aside grudges as they race to the aid of the ancestors they venerate so greatly. The Kronos Hegemony. It is said of the Kronos Hegemony that there is no problem they will not solve with an axe. Existing as a military superstate, their kindreds muster some of the largest and most aggressive kin hosts known amongst the Leagues of Votann. Nor are they sparing in their army's use, for the Kronos Hegemony marches ever onward. The Hegemony is a relatively young league, founded less than a millennia ago when the fane of Corin's kindred achieved self-awareness. This newly ascended Votan exhibited an aggressive drive for knowledge and a demanding appetite for raw materials. The better for Corin's kindred to enhance its physical shell and arm themselves in its defense. Prior to this, Corin's kindred had been a relatively minor member of the faltering Capellan League. Blessed as they now were with their own Votan, they broke away to start the Kronos Hegemony. and took several other former Capellan kindreds with them. More kin were soon drawn to the straightforward aggression of the Kronos Hegemony, swelling their ranks further. That trademark aggression, which often veers into outright belligerence, has only become more pronounced as the centuries have passed and the hegemony's might has grown. A kindred wishing to join the hegemony must offer suitable tribute in order to earn its place, and its kin must swear martial oaths of service and loyalty that are considered eternally binding. It is expected that their hold and Void Fleet will focus upon war, and that they will train and equip massive kin-host forces. The expectation of tribute does not end with joining the hegemony. Each kindred must prove their commitment by conquering an allotted quota of enemy worlds each year cycle, sending portions of the spoils back to Corrin's kindred for their Votan's defense. The kindreds of the Kronos Hegemony have engaged in border skirmishes and standoffs with other leagues, and they have a reputation, not least thanks to needing to hit their conquest quotas, for finding any excuse to escalate into full-blown war against alien races. It has been suggested that many grudges declared by the hegemony owe as much to a need to justify costly conflicts as they do to a genuine desire for vengeance. That said, the kin of the Kronos Hegemony are notoriously stiff-necked and quick to anger. It takes little offence to see their swarms of gunships and armoured transports go thundering into battle. For all this, many kin have had cause to be glad of the hegemony's aid when beset by Xenos invaders. Entire Ork wars and acquisitive Imperial crusades have been shattered by their massed kin-hosts. Moreover, since the manifestation of the recent warp storms, the hegemony have wasted little time in annexing territories belonging to various alien races. They cite the simple belief that the kin require them to survive, and are therefore entitled to take them, preferably by force. The Yimir Conglomerate. All kin value good craftsmanship, but none more so than those of the Yimir Conglomerate. Experts in every form of manufacturing, the Brockir see to it that the conglomerate's holds and fleets are replete with marvels of technology, and that their weapons of war are second to none. A kindred's entry into the elite Yimir Conglomerate is dependent on fulfilling one of two criteria. Some kindreds are permitted to join after proving the exceptional skill of their Brockir in fashioning battle gear, void ships, field technologies, or whatever other systems their forge specializes in. The more prolific and puissant the kindred's Brockirs, the higher status they win for their kindred within the conglomerate. The other possible criterion for entry is if a kindred's territories yield a suitably spectacular bounty of raw materials for use in the Ymir forges. There is no stigma attached to a kindred effectively buying its way in like this. The kin are pragmatic enough to recognize that even the most skilled Brockir can achieve little without fuel for their forge and materials to work with. In exchange for sizable exports of raw materials, these resource-rich kindreds are rewarded with weapons, war gear, and vessels forged by their skilled allies. Though smaller than some of the Leagues of Votann, the conglomerate boasts the greatest concentration of superb technologies anywhere in the galactic core. Every one of their kindreds benefits from remarkable force field generators to protect their void mining concerns and holds, expertly crafted teleportation hubs that deliver their passengers safely to their destinations, almost without fail, and high-end scanning and communication suites. Their holds contain civilian facilities that, by Spartan kin standards, border upon decadence, while their oath bands and prospects boast phenomenal military hardware of every sort. The forges of famous holds such as Vonix, Hall of Hammers, Cinder Span, and the Yamus Solaran produce singular mechanisms of sublime might. Moreover, the Ymir are notorious for possessing enough advanced beam weaponry, suits of exo-armor, and colossal-class war engines to equip their armies at a level most kindreds can only afford for their most elite warriors. Even before the coming of the Great Rift, some conglomerate kindreds were frequently visitors to far space. They either traded with alien empires for materials not available in the galactic core, or else took by force those rich systems they considered theirs by merit of need. Recent developments have also seen them redouble these efforts, for some of their wealthiest kindreds have been cut off by warp storms or invading aliens, and the rest of the League will not see their famed forges grow cold for lack of fuel. The Urani-Sutier Regulators. This league have a reputation for survival against the odds. Courage and hardiness are their watchwords, and while they might seem more dour than most of their race, there are none more dependable to have at one's back in the face of peril. Known throughout the League of Votann as the URSR, this league and its kindreds have long held on to a swathe of heavily contested and foe-haunted territories in the southern reaches of the galactic core. On one border, they face the awakened and warlike Necron dynasty of Semnok, whose single-minded Pharaon appears intent upon claiming the Urani-Sutier holdworlds. From the Shattered Stars to their east come the raiding fleets of Bog the Freebooter King, an Ork privateer who commands a seemingly endless empire of ragtag green-skinned pirates. Then there is the Norstar cluster, lodged like a splinter amidst the URSR's northernmost kindreds. These worlds are haunted by an infestation of Tyranids that exhibit strange, almost nesting behaviour patterns, unusual for their species, and are ever hungry to claim new worlds to infest. Other kindreds might have given ground in the face of such relentless threats, but the URSR refused to do so, nor do they show any inclination to explain their apparent stubbornness to other leagues, beyond asserting that the Ancestors would abandon them forever if they gave up their whole worlds, or allowed them to fall. Some among the Grimnir believe that the URSR guard some secret site of great import, or are privy to knowledge whose burden they shoulder alone. Others suspect that they are bound by rash grudges sworn by their forebears against their encroaching foes, and that they must see these through to whatever bloody end. The most cynical claim that the kindreds of the URSR are simply too stubborn to admit poor return from their hardships, and are too proud to relinquish their lands. The kin of the URSR give no outward sign that they care what the rest of their race thinks of them. They admit new kindreds into their ranks only infrequently, and then only after rigorous tests and secretive meetings, about which the new applicants are oath-sworn never to speak. No kindred has ever left the URSR once admitted, though whether this is out of loyalty or for some other more sinister reason remains unknown. It is expected of every URSR kindred that they maintain as large a population as they can, accepting an ascetic lifestyle with bare minimums of food, light, air, and heat in exchange for keeping their fighting ranks replenished. This selfless commitment to their cause is writ large upon the battlefield when the soldiers of the League march to war. Their kin are ferociously loyal to one another and to their League, and they refuse to countenance defeat or despair while breath remains in their bodies. As the kin possess no centralized administrative body, no one knows precisely how many Leagues of Votann there are. This troubles the kin not at all. For them, it is enough to know that they are many and strong, and that every league, no matter their differences, strives for the furtherance of their race. The traditions and customs of each league typically grow from those of its founding kindred. They are also informed by the lore offered by the Leagues Votann, and on rare occasions by the unusual predilections or rudimentary personalities affected by these same ancestor cores. In typical kin fashion, what begins as a ratified charter or unofficial verbal agreement between allies soon solidifies into traditions that all of the League's kindreds are expected to uphold. While some of the Leagues of Votann might appear homogeneous to outside observers, barring only their heraldic colours and league insignia, in truth most are quite different from one another. Many factors impact the nature of each league. Should its territories border an especially hazardous region, rife with alien threats, that league is likely to adopt a more militaristic outlook. A league whose kindreds are renowned for their Cathonian Guilds or interstellar trade might possess a more cosmopolitan and exploratory culture. Conversely, the perils of far space may have rendered particular kindreds cynical or insular. Some leagues pride themselves particularly upon their void-faring capabilities, the forthcoming knowledge and comparative clarity of their Votan, or on their reputation as adventurers and tellers of grand tales. Moreover, every kindred within the League has its own way of keeping its customs, and may choose to focus on one particular aspect of its overarching traditions. Amongst the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, for example, the kindred of Liminus Crag are famed as shipwrights of the swiftest voidcraft and atmospheric gunships, while the Ukalax kindred choose instead to honour their League's traditions by having every last one of their kin serve at least a decade as Hearnkin during their early years. By comparison, the brutally direct Kindred 6 of the Kronos Hegemony pride themselves on their mastery of urban warfare, while their sometime rivals, Salaka's kindred, favour massed artillery and siege warfare. Some of the Leagues of Votann possess traditions that epitomise one aspect or another of their race's core values. The Typhon Styx Protectorate, for instance, seek always to render themselves indomitable, so that they may be unassailable by enemies and invaders. Their oath bands lean towards steady and relentless strategies, advancing from one defensible position to the next, and allowing waves of enemy counterattacks to smash themselves apart against swiftly raised ramparts and tanks, dug in as temporary bunkers. The holds of Typhon Styx are, without exception, massively fortified. They are forever being improved by the League's diligent Brokirs. The Gulu industrial complex, by comparison, is a league whose kindreds pour almost all of their time and energy into maintaining trade routes, and keeping their convoys of heavy haulers and escort ships moving along them. This league contains several extremely large and powerful Cathonian guilds, whose influence in the half-spake is such that they are virtually the de facto rulers of the Gulu industrial complex as a whole. Other leagues have more unusual characteristics, or are notable for their allies and connections. The League of Tethys Expanse, for example, is extremely widespread. Its kindreds maintain contact by means of a singularly potent interstellar communications network, whose proprietary technologies they will only lease to other leagues for a substantial fee. The Sigma Draconi Union is a martially inclined league that prizes honourable combat greatly. Its kin hosts are held to a strict code of conduct at all times, and take an unusual degree of pride in their heraldry and decorative insignia. The Pan-Telluric Commonwealth boasts an exceptionally egalitarian society, while the Jotun Eridani Combine have a strongly meritocratic and a Brocare-centric one. Meanwhile, the Sarantok Mercantile League is primarily known for being the league to have traded most heavily with the Tau Empire. The Ironkin were created by, and to this day are still manufactured by, the Votan. Ironkin are true mechanical intellects. They possess tremendous cogitational power, and are able to mimic kin social behaviours so well that they have integrated fully with their flesh and blood cousins. Each Ironkin consists of a cerebral unit, or CU, and a unique mechanical body. An Ironskin CU has microfield generators woven into its structure, rendering it nigh on invulnerable, while its body is designed to fulfill one of a variety of roles, be that generalist, strategic advisor, combat shock trooper, mining support unit, cargo lugger, combat pilot, or whatever else. An Ironkin's body is as personal to it as the flesh and blood frame of a living being. It requires repair when damaged, rather than simply being replaced like some mechanical component. In extremis, however, Ironkin can survive as a CU alone. Should they be reduced to this condition, they are able to enter a state of torpor and project an all-frequency distress beacon. The purpose of the Ironkin is to aid the kin in every aspect of their lives. However, they are not enslaved to this role, nor treated as such by the kin. It is simply in their nature to find whatever niche they best fill, and then to perform that role to the best of their abilities. That said, the Ironkin are artificial beings. As such, they can only imitate the emotions and drives of their biological fellows. It is thus rare that Ironkin possess any degree of ambition, or seek to become leaders amongst their people. While they may express pride, camaraderie, courage, empathy, or anger, in truth, these are but acts to optimize their societal integration. Disgusting. The Brokir are amongst the most highly skilled techno-artificers in the galaxy. Making full use of the incredible bounty of the galactic core, coupled with the precious lore of the Votan, they craft devices of superlative durability, reliability, and power. In this way, they contribute greatly to their species' survival. Every Hold's forge is unique, built and augmented over centuries to specifications determined by Votanic wisdom and personal kindred preference. Yet in some aspects they are uniform. All are sleepless hubs of activity, lit by molten fires and searing plasma arcs of technological manufacture. And all are filled with mechanisms of artiface, ranging from personal workstations to colossal auto-foundries. As well as overseeing the work of their cog robot assistants, each Brokir takes pride in constructing their own devices. They follow traditional schematics in deference to the wisdom of the ancients. Yet there is also general recognition that to truly honour the Votan, each of them must humbly apply their own ingenuity, coupled with rigorous field tests, to improve upon traditional designs. Through this process, each of them develops their own preferences and quirks, which become known as their signature. The most efficacious signatures are adopted by their fellows, so that over time many kindreds or even entire leagues have adopted bespoke methods of crafting and manufacture. This slow but relentless process of improving upon understood technologies has helped the kin to develop original standard template constructs even further. The most commonplace articles of clothing worn throughout the Leagues of Votann is the Void Suit, and it is an excellent exemplar of the no-nonsense kin approach to technology. Threaded with bastium alloy reinforcement and fitted with a thermoregulatory radiation-hardened underlayer, the Void Suit doubles as both rugged utility wear and, when combined with a helmet, a fully functional spacesuit. It is studded with connector relays that allow the coupling of everything from exoframes and pressure rigs to reinforced void armor. This latter is the standard issue for soldiers of the line. Void armor provides substantial personal protection, multi-layer defense against atmospheric hazards, and a full suite of scanning and communication equipment. Another technology, standard throughout the kin hosts, is the haptic utility nerve transmission recalibrator, commonly called the HUN-TR module. Meshing with standardized neuro-augmetics, this technology establishes a physical input and feedback loop between firearms and their users. It triggers minute gravitational assistance pulses from projectors built into the weapon's body, helping to maintain a stable firing platform, even while the wielder is running full pelt across the battlefield, being jolted by shell impacts, or is letting fly from a moving vehicle. HUN-TR modules are integral to the typical kin tactics of relentless advance, while maintaining punishing volleys of fire. When coupled with the kin's natural musculature, solidity, and excellent training, Hun TR modules are tremendously effective. These are but a couple of examples of kin technology, yet they embody the principles to which nearly all Bruckheir adhere. Built to prioritize reliability, utility, and efficiency over showy decoration or ideas of ritual significance, kin wargear is as rugged and pragmatic as the beings that wield it, and will be battered to destruction before it fails in its duty. The guns wielded by the kin bear superficial similarities to many Imperial technologies, but are superior in almost every respect. From solid-shot weapons such as the Autok patent bolter to the energy weapons like the Hylas auto rifle, the kin employ superlative materials and methods in their construction. Accelerator coils and many other such advancements ensure that kin firearms remain reliable in even the most adverse conditions. Some weapon families, such as the Vulcanite firearms, have remained unchanged in design for millennia. Others employ energy sources humanity has never tamed, or that are prescribed by the dogma of the Adeptus Mechanicus. It was the kin who first introduced the Tau Empire to ion weaponry, though to this day they keep the finest of these weapons to themselves. Trusted to effect battlefield repairs on their weapons, and well versed in their strengths and tolerances, the warriors of the kin hosts are well positioned to get the absolute best from the superb arsenal that has been crafted for them. It is a fact of war, to the kin, that many foes, not least the hated greenskins, cannot be halted by firepower alone. Such enemies must be battled blade to blade and defeated quickly. Kin close combat weapons embody this ethos. They make substantial use of plasma fields, either to reeve blades or to form the blades themselves. Such weapons sieve through physical shields and body armor with equal ease, and reduce the foe to cauterized chunks of meat. More brutal still are concussion weapons, be they hammers, mauls, or even just reinforced armored gauntlets. They mount mass drivers that magnify the force of their impact to a colossal degree. Perhaps the most feared of kin close combat weapons are those that employ dark star ore, mined from the fringes of the dead zones. This inimical material emits a universal dampening field that shuts down organic and mechanical function at contact. It is worked into kin weaponry with the greatest of care and wielded with equal gravitas, for the slightest cut from a dark star blade can end the victim's life like a switch. The kin make a specialism of force field technologies. The crowning glory and most ubiquitous example of force field tech is the weave field. Variants of weave field projector have been developed for everything from personal protection for void miners and soldiers of the line to massive examples that protect kin void ships. The system employs an energy weaving technique called a weaverwork, which interlaces energy frequencies common to both refractor and conversion field technology, interlinked with more exotic energies, such as magnetic repulsion fields. The resultant multispectral shield is maintained either in a personal energy cowl or else projected to form a protective dome, the better to shelter entire squads of warriors or bands of Cathonian miners. Amongst the kin hosts, weave field projectors are commonly worked into armoured crests or mounted on war engines. From here, their shimmering amber energies flow outward into translucent energy domes, capable of intercepting even esoteric or apocalyptic munitions. The emergence of the Great Rift shook the Leagues of Votann to their foundations. Holds vanished amidst the roiling energies of the warp storm belt. Trade routes were severed. Many kindreds were compelled to relocate their holdings, abandoning territories held for thousands of years, and venturing out from the galactic core to seek more stable regions to settle. Both within the core and beyond its fringes, the Rift's advent has driven the kin into new conflicts, as well as stirring up old foes and setting them on a collision course with the Leagues. The kin do not recognize or name the Great Rift as a single manifest phenomena. They believe that to do so would lend further superstitious menace to a threat that is already menacing enough. They choose instead to name the greatest of the component warp storms that have opened within the galactic core, treating each as a separate peril to be weathered and overcome. One such raging empiric maelstrom opened upon the northeastern fringe of the greater Thurian League space, and was soon named Ogver, roughly translating in High Gothic as the Ogre. The Void Strider kindred and Lacrea's kindred were swallowed up in the instant of its opening. Their pan-spectral arrays gave some small forewarning, and so ragged flotillas of kin refugee ships limped from the fringes of Ogver days after its emergence, their passengers telling of holds dissolved into raw madness or overrun by howling demons. Close on their heels came ravening Chaos warfleets. Sailing the void in Baroque warships and monstrous hulks, they fell upon the greater Thurian systems bordering the storm zone. As more Chaos worshippers poured out of Ogver by the day, it became clear to the greater Thurian League that a terrible new threat had been unleashed upon their holds. Those kindreds whose holds lay directly in the invaders' path now faced a difficult choice: to hold their ground against the onslaught, or to fall back in the face of growing enemy strength. Exchanging messages as best they could via hardened Lascom relays, the half-spakes of the Deep Rock Kindred, the Kindred of Votan, Khalid's Starbreaker Kindred, and Kindred Crimson II all elected to hold fast. The Grimnir interfaced in their fanes with the greater Thurian Votan, asking that it communicate their plight to the wider League and begging its advice. Swift merchant craft and scout ships plunged into the war, bearing the same messages to neighbouring kindreds. Those facing the invasion would stand firm until the will of the Votan and the League could be made known, or until their defences were judged too costly to maintain. Meanwhile, the ravening hordes of Chaos blazed a trail of havoc toward the hold worlds that lay in their path. By a stroke of good fortune, Karl Uther, the Destined, had recently returned to Obsid Gate, hold of his own Kindred of Votan. Ever the dynamic hero of his people, Uther convinced the Kindred of Votan that they could not afford to simply mass behind their defences and await their enemy's onslaught. To do so handed all strategic initiative and opportunity to the invaders, and would abandon outlying facilities, resources and personnel to their murderous attentions. The voice of the Destined carried great weight amongst his kindred, who were swiftly convinced by his arguments. Thus, their mustered kinhost broke into a number of oath bands. Some would remain to garrison Obsid Gate, while the rest would sally forth under the command of Uther and several other prominent heroes to launch counterattacks against the incoming Chaos invaders. Their role would be to slow the enemy wherever possible, to evacuate all resources, kin and ironkin they could, and to destroy any facilities they could not rescue, so as to deny their use to the foe. Uther's Oathband deployed to the outlying world of Torg. Riven by years of deep-core tectonic mining, Torg was a hostile mass of jagged stone, exposed magma veins, convulsing supervolcanoes, and kin harvester fortresses, wreathed in toxic fumes. Several immense renegade warships had already settled in the vulnerable world's orbit and disgorged warbands of heretic Astartes to the surface. Mutated space marines of the Purge and ferocious, corn-worshipping world-eaters had overrun Torg's void docks and cut bands of guild miners off within their harvester fortresses. Swiftly casting the eye of the Ancestors over the dire situation, Uther formulated his plan and set his forces into motion without delay. In the void, the ships of Uther's Oathband engaged the craft of the Chaos Worshippers at the command of Void Master Hemik. Their mighty conversion beam batteries and salvos of drill torpedoes mauled the Grand Cruiser Abomination and forced other Chaos warships to break off orbital bombardment in order to respond. Hemik coordinated a small but potent fleet with consummate skill, fending off each assault by the Chaos worshippers and handing out far worse punishment than her own ship suffered. Nocker's Hearnkin Pioneer Band, supported by light gunships and rugged Sagittor ATVs, swept through the high passes of the Fumarok range to attack the World Eaters from the rear. They launched swift hit-and-run strikes, using their pan-spectral scanners to maintain a fix on their enemies amidst the toxic murk. Goaded to action, many wrath-crazed Khorne berserkers broke off their assault on Harvester Fortress 5 and pursued Nocker's band into the hazardous passes. Separating into several smaller oath bands, Uther the Destined's forces launched a massive drop offensive into the Shatterfields. Uther himself led an armoured spearhead against the World Eaters of Lord Hakatar. Karl Svek Thurken and her oath band met the purge head-on. As orbital fire from both sides rained down, the two swirling battles erupted into a storm of close-range firefights and brutal offensives. While the foe were engaged to the north, Grimnir Cohen led an elite force of Einir and Hearthkin to evacuate the Cathonians at Harvester Fortresses 2, 3 and 4. Guildkin and great quantities of raw material were loaded aboard Hackathon land fortresses and armoured carriages they drew behind them. Sensing their prey escaping, Uthek Skullripper led a mass teleport assault of World Eaters Terminators that cut the Grimnir and her bodyguard off, even as kin forces were pulling back. Though many Cathonian berserks turned back to hurl themselves into the fight, the living Ancestor could not be rescued. The surviving Cathonians, and many of the Hearthkin, have since formed the Grudge Band of Cohen. They will be avenged upon Uthek Skullripper, who die trying. Uther the Destined met Lord Hakatar of the World Eaters upon the stone span bridging the Chasm of Embers. The two warlords battled back and forth along the crumbling expanse as their warriors fought and died around them, and pillars of volcanic fire blasted up from below. Wounded but unbowed, Uther at last wrong-footed his foe, taking the World Eater's right leg off with a vicious sweep and pitching him, still howling with fury, into the flames below. After several hours of rapid armoured warfare, and with the vast majority of kin assets ferried successfully up to his waiting void ships, Karl Uther commanded a full retreat from Torg. Howled accusations of cowardice from the Khorne worshippers followed the retreat. They meant nothing to the kin. All that was worth extracting from the planet had been recovered, and any remaining assets were deemed not worth the cost in lives to salvage. The Great Thurian League oath bands fell back in good order, Voidmaster Hemik giving the enemy flotilla a last devastating volley to scatter their formations before commanding a plunge back into warp space. The tragic death of Grimnir Cohen aside, the Torg offensive had proved successful, but the wider war zone of Ogvir was becoming more fraught and violent by the hour. A great battle lay before the Great Thurian League, and Uther the Destined would be needed elsewhere. And with that, we'll leave it there, because there isn't really anything else. There's not much lore on these guys, so you've got everything. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I think I'm going to do another video, because I think these guys might genuinely be the most disturbing and tragic faction in 40k. I know they're new, and their introduction is a little bit of a... It causes some issues with the lore, right? I might do another video discussing this, but I honestly find these, you know, I know they don't seem like it. You'd think like the Necrons or like Nurgle or, you know, demons or something like that. But these guys, you actually consider what they are, these clone creatures. I mean, they look like the remnant of like just like a mining expedition from Terra. You know, like, who thought this was, like, how was this organised? You know, it seems like a business enterprise. It's got like shades of Pandorum, you know, if you've ever seen that movie. I might do a separate video discussing this in the not too distant future. But thank you all for watching. Thank you to everybody supporting the channel. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And if you'd like to support the channel, please consider becoming a channel member, which I really appreciate, or a patron on Patreon. Your name will be added to the list of heroes here. If it isn't here now, it'll be added at some point soon. I try and I update it regularly. But thank you everybody supporting the channel. Thank you so much. If you would, please give the video a like and let me know in the comments what you think. Both those things really, really help the channel grow and keep everything going on. And I really appreciate that. Please do subscribe if you're watching this and you're not subscribed. And if you think you know anyone who might enjoy this, please do consider sharing it with them. It all really helps me. I really appreciate it. Also hit the bell so you get notified if I do this. Well, when I do these videos, and you'll get the ping, and it'll tell you the new one has come. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very, very soon with more stuff. I've got some bigger sort of campaign videos, battle videos, that sort of thing coming up soon after this will be released. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again soon. And like I say, I'll do another video delving into, because I've got a couple of issues with these space dwarfs. I have to say, I've got a couple of issues with them. But I also just want to talk about, like, I need to write down my thoughts. I need to think my thoughts, because like I find these might be the most disturbing faction in 40k in ways that probably wasn't intended. But yeah, they weird me out. They weird me out. I don't like it. It all seems unnatural. I'll be back. I guess it's very grim dark in a way that I don't think was intended. But anyway, I'll be back again very, very soon. Thank you all for watching. My throat's gone. Oh, see you later. Bye-bye. Ta-ra.